The night my wife stood in front of 200 people and called me a worthless nobody, she had no idea I signed her paycheck. She had no idea I signed everyone's paycheck in that room, and what I found hidden in our bedroom 2 weeks later didn't just end our marriage. It nearly destroyed my children. My name is Marcus Holden, 45 years old. I built something from the ground up that most people would spend 2 lifetimes chasing, and I spent 20 years pretending it didn't exist. That decision cost me more than I ever imagined it could. Let me take you back to that October night at the Grand Meridian Hotel in downtown Hartford. The night my entire carefully constructed world cracked clean in half. My wife Diane looked beautiful. She always did at events like this. She'd chosen a deep burgundy gown, her dark hair pulled back, diamond earrings I'd given her on our anniversary catching the chandeliers above the ballroom floor. Our twins, Lucas and Leah, were 16 at the time and had been dropped at a school function earlier that evening. Our younger two, Cole and Maya, were at my sister's place. Diane had made it clear this was an adults-only evening. No kids, no distractions. She had also made it clear she wanted me there no earlier than 9. I showed up at 7. I'm not sure what made me do it. Call it instinct. Call it 6 months of something quietly rotting beneath the surface of our marriage that I couldn't name but could feel every single time she looked at me. I used the service entrance on the north side of the hotel, nodded to a catering supervisor who didn't care enough to ask questions, and slipped into the ballroom before the program started. I found a position beside a wide decorative column near the bar, partially obscured by an arrangement of floral centerpieces the size of small trees. To anyone who noticed me, I was a guest arriving early. Nobody noticed me. Nobody ever did at events like this. To the entire staff of Pinnacle Manufacturing, I was Diane's husband, the quiet one, the guy who worked in the warehouse, loading dock, swept floors when things got slow. They pitied her, I think, in the polite way people pity someone who married beneath them. What none of them knew, including Diane's boss, was that the warehouses were mine. Pinnacle Manufacturing was mine. Every brick in every facility, every share certificate, every quarterly dividend, mine. My grandfather had founded the company in 1961. I'd inherited controlling interest and spent 2 decades quietly growing it from the inside without ever letting anyone at the executive level know who they were actually working for. That was my mistake. One of many. The program started around 8 o'clock. The man who took the podium was Thomas Garrett, 53, silver-haired, tailored charcoal suit. My CEO, though he'd never been told the identity of his largest shareholder. He had a smooth, practiced ease about him, the kind of man who made power look effortless. "Good evening," Thomas began, his voice filling the ballroom like he'd been born speaking into microphones. "Tonight, we honor someone who has transformed the way Pinnacle Manufacturing operates. Someone who has pushed us harder, thought faster, and delivered results no one else thought possible." The audience leaned forward. Diane stood near the stage, radiating the particular kind of happiness that comes from being the center of a room. "Diane Holden," Thomas said, letting the name hang in the air for a beat before the applause crested, "has been with Pinnacle for 7 years. In that time, she's increased our operational efficiency by 39% and driven profit margins that most of our competitors can only look at with envy." More applause. Diane smiled like the sun coming out. "But what impresses me most," Thomas continued, stepping around the podium now, dropping his voice to something more intimate, "isn't the data, it's her resilience. You see, Diane does all of this while carrying a weight most of us couldn't manage." I went still behind my column. "She goes home every night to a husband who—" He paused, one corner of his mouth pulling into a grin. "How do I put this kindly? He's a simple man, good-hearted, I'm sure, but not exactly someone you'd describe as intellectually stimulating." Scattered laughter from the room. "Diane succeeds in spite of her home life," Thomas said, his voice rising now, performing. "That's not just competence, ladies and gentlemen. That's genuine strength of character." Full laughter. Someone near the front actually clapped. I watched my wife's face across the ballroom. She wasn't wincing, she wasn't stepping forward to object, she was smiling. Thomas handed her the microphone with a theatrical flourish. "Thomas, you're awful," she said, laughing softly. But honestly, it's true. Coming home after days like this and having to decompress alone because Marcus, my husband, he just doesn't operate on the same level. It drains you after a while, you know? The room responded with warm, knowing murmurs, the sound of people who understood, who'd been there, who had at some point felt trapped beside someone who didn't measure up. I stepped out from behind the column. My footsteps were quiet on the polished floor, but people noticed halfway across the room, confused expressions, a few whispers. Who is this? Security, maybe? I kept walking. Diane saw me at about 15 feet. Her smile evaporated like smoke in wind. Thomas Garrett looked annoyed, then uncertain, then something approaching alarm as I climbed the 3 steps to the stage and lifted the microphone from my wife's frozen hand. "Good evening," I said. My voice was steady, steadier than I expected. "I'm Marcus Holden, Diane's husband, the warehouse guy, the simple one." Absolute silence. "Thomas, that was a beautiful tribute, really moving." I turned slightly toward him. "Quick thing though, this company you've been running for 4 years, Pinnacle Manufacturing. I own it. Every facility, every production line, every share. Shepherd Holdings, that's the parent company, was founded by my grandfather, and I'm the majority shareholder. You work for me. Everyone in this room works for me." A sound moved through the crowd like a wave. Not laughter. Something else entirely. Diane made a noise beside me, a short, panicked exhale. "Marcus, that's not... You don't... It's in the corporate filings if anyone wants to verify," I said. "I've spent 20 years letting people assume things about me because it was easier. Tonight it stopped being easier." I set the microphone on the podium. "Congratulations on the promotion, Diane." I walked off that stage. The crowd split apart in front of me the way crowds do when something just happened that no one knows how to process yet. Behind me I heard Thomas start to stammer something, heard Diane begin to cry, heard a rising tide of voices filling the ballroom as the silence collapsed. I didn't look back once. The valet brought my truck around in 4 minutes. I tipped him $20 I barely remembered handing over and drove north on Route 44 with the windows down and October air coming through like cold water on a burn. My phone started ringing at 9:30. Diane's name on the screen over and over. Her photo from a trip to Savannah 2 summers ago. Both of us laughing on the waterfront like people with nothing to hide. I let it ring. I pulled into a rest stop somewhere north of town and sat with both hands on the steering wheel, staring at a stretch of darkness beyond the sodium lights. A semi rolled through and disappeared into the black. I sat there until a different number lit up my screen. My sister, Rachel. "Marcus, what did you just do?" "You heard. Someone posted the video 10 minutes ago. It's already been shared 50,000 times." Her voice dropped. "Where are you?" "Rest stop, north of town somewhere. Come here. Right now. Don't make any decisions tonight. Don't call anyone. Don't do anything. Just come here." Rachel had always been the one who thought clearly when I couldn't. 11 years older, sharper than anyone gave her credit for. "Okay," I said. 20 minutes. Before I pulled back onto the highway, I found the video. It took about 4 seconds to locate, already trending. There I was, crossing that ballroom floor. Diane going pale. My voice surprisingly calm, dropping the truth like a stone into still water. Thomas Garrett's face cycling through annoyance, confusion, and something close to horror. Then me walking away through a crowd that had no idea what had just happened. The comments were already thousands deep. Half called Diane every name available. Half called me a liar. Said it was staged, said nobody actually does that. A few called me a hero. Most just wanted to see what happened next. I closed the app, turned the truck around, and headed toward Rachel's house in Millbrook. She was on the front porch when I pulled up. Didn't say anything, just came down the steps and held on while I stood there trying to remember how to breathe. "Daniel made soup," she said finally. "You're eating. I'm not hungry." Marcus. Her husband Daniel was at the stove when we came in. He nodded at me in the quiet way men do when words aren't the right tool. I sat at their kitchen table and let Rachel put food in front of me. Then I started talking, and once I started, I couldn't stop. Everything, every suspicion I'd been carrying, every strange distance I'd felt growing in Diane for months, the way she laughed too easily at certain names, the way she'd started staying later and later at the office. Rachel listened to all of it. At 2 a.m, when I'd finally gone quiet, she poured more coffee and said, "There's something else, isn't there?" It wasn't a question. "I don't know yet," I said. "But yeah, I think there is." I couldn't sleep. Daniel found me in the kitchen at 3, took one look, poured 2 mugs, and sat across from me without saying a word. We stayed like that for 2 hours. Sometimes the most useful thing another person can do is simply refuse to leave. "You know what the worst part is?" I said eventually. "It's not whatever she's been doing. It's that she was ashamed of me. I thought she knew who I was. I thought that was enough." Daniel looked at the table. "She knew," he said quietly. "That's the part that makes it worse." Rachel was up by 6 with her laptop already open. "Your name's in the business journals this morning. The story's gone national. Media wants comment from Shepherd Holdings. Your lawyers have already been called." She looked at me over the screen. "Your phone is going to be unusable." I switched it on. 71 missed calls. Over 200 texts. Email well past 500 unread. Rachel scrolled through quickly. "Mostly Diane, but also..." She paused. "Lucas called you 4 times last night, and there are texts from Leah, the twins." My stomach dropped straight through the floor. I dialed Lucas before I could think too hard about it. He picked up on the first ring. "Dad, where are you? Mom's completely falling apart, and there's stuff online about you owning Pinnacle Manufacturing. Is that real?" "It's real. All of it." Silence. Then, "You've been lying to us. I kept something from you. It's not the same thing." "Isn't it?" His voice cracked slightly on the edge of something he was trying to keep controlled. "Can you come talk to us? Me and Leah? Franklin's Diner. Noon. Just you two, okay?" I hung up. Rachel was watching me with the particular expression she saves for moments when she knows I'm about to do something painful but necessary. "They deserve the truth," I said. "All of it. Enough of it." I went to the house first. Diane's car was gone by the time I arrived at 9, which was what I needed. 8 years of our lives in that colonial on Westmere Drive, basketball hoop in the driveway, flower beds Diane had planted and abandoned after the first season, a door with a keypad I'd installed for the kids. The house smelled like her perfume. Family photos lined the hallway. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, a beach vacation in the Outer Banks where Cole had gotten stung by a jellyfish and spent the afternoon insisting it was the best day of his life. I went upstairs, packed a bag. The watch my grandfather gave me when I turned 30 went in first, then clothes. Then, on my way out of the closet, something made me stop. A shoebox, Diane's side, pushed back behind her winter boots. I don't know why I reached for it. Some part of me already knew, the way you sometimes know the answer before you finished forming the question. Inside, letters. Dozens of them. Pinnacle Manufacturing letterhead, from Thomas Garrett. The first one was dated 3.5 years ago. "Last night changed everything for me. I can't stop thinking about you. We need to be more careful, but God, I don't want to be careful." I sat on the edge of the bed and read every single one. Love notes, hotel arrangements, Thomas talking about leaving his wife, Diane writing back about how Marcus, me, was completely oblivious, would never figure it out, was too busy playing warehouse worker to notice anything. The last letter was from 3 weeks ago. "Once you're director, we have the leverage we need. We can start redirecting resources, restructuring the divisions that push back on our decisions. Maybe even use your access to move Shepherd Holdings in a direction that benefits us both. Marcus doesn't know what he has. He never will." I read that last sentence 4 times. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning something. I took the entire box. "Remember, All our wellness and fitness supplements, from performance to recovery to everyday health support, are listed in the description and pinned comment. Check them out. Franklin's Diner had been a family spot since the kids were small. Lucas and Leah walked in at noon exactly, 16 years old and already carrying themselves like people bracing for bad news. They had Diane's cheekbones and my tendency to go quiet when something hurt. "Dad," Leah said, sliding into the booth, "we need answers. You'll get them. But first I need to say I'm sorry. You shouldn't have found out through a video someone posted online." "Why didn't you just tell us?" Lucas asked. "All these years, you let us think you were barely getting by. We thought money was tight because that's all we had." I took a breath. This was the hardest part of all of it to explain. "When you were born, I wanted you to grow up understanding what it meant to earn something. My father had money and it made him distant, entitled. He never connected with real people because he didn't think he had to. I didn't want that for you. Mi pareja, we lived simply, on purpose." "Mi pareja, you lied," Leah said, flat, no waver in her voice. "I kept a secret. There's a difference." "Is there?" She leaned forward. "Dad, we're not little kids. We could have handled this. Instead, we're finding out from Twitter that our father owns a company worth, what, $300 million? Do you know what that feels like?" "I can imagine. You really can't." Lucas's voice rose slightly. "Imagine your entire sense of who your family is just evaporating. Everything you thought you knew turning out to be a different story than the one you were told." The waitress came. We ordered food nobody planned to eat. When she left, I said, "The important parts were real. Loving you kids, everything I taught you about work and honesty and integrity. That was never a performance. The only thing that wasn't what it looked like was the number in my bank account." Leah looked at me for a long moment. "And Mom," there it was. "Your mother and I are having serious problems," I said carefully. "Adult problems that don't have anything to do with you. But those problems are part of why I stopped hiding who I was last night." "Everyone's seen what she said," Lucas said. "The holding you back part, the simple part." He said it like it left a bad taste. Did she mean it? She said things she shouldn't have, and I reacted by revealing something she wasn't prepared for. We both made mistakes. Leah's eyes flashed. "That's not the same thing, Dad." She stood up there and agreed while her boss made you into a joke. "That's not a mistake, that's a choice." "Leah, we talked to her this morning. She keeps saying you embarrassed her, that you ruined her promotion because you were jealous. That's not what happened, is it?" "No." "Then you need to make sure the real story gets told." She looked at her brother. Lucas nodded. What happened next changed everything, because as I was about to respond, Lucas said, "Dad, that letter, the one about redirecting resources and moving Shepherd Holdings in a different direction, what does that mean?" I set down my fork. "Where did you see that?" Mom left her laptop open. "We saw an email from Thomas apologizing for things getting out of hand. We read some of the others." He met my eyes. "They've been together 3 years, haven't they?" "Yes." "And they were planning something?" "Yes." "What are you going to do about it?" I looked at my 2 oldest children, 16 years old and already sharp enough to see exactly what was happening. "I'm going to find out the full picture, and then I'm going to deal with it." 3 days after the party, I sat across from a private investigator named Howard Price in a 3rd-floor office on Congress Street. He was methodical, unhurried, the kind of man who delivered bad news without apology or embellishment. He spread photographs across the desk between us. "Your wife and Thomas Garrett have been meeting at the Hotel Arcadian every Thursday for the past 3 years, Price said. "Same suite, different names on the reservation. I've documented 41 visits." He tapped a series of timestamps on printed sheets. "Both cars in the parking structure. Arrivals timed apart. Departures together. There's a second piece," Price continued. He slid another folder across the desk. I opened it. "Bank statement. Monthly wire transfers. $22,000 deposited into an offshore account every month. For 26 months. "That's from Pinnacle's discretionary budget," I said. "Skimmed carefully." small enough per transaction to stay under automated flags. Over the full period, he paused briefly, close to $570,000. The account holder's name was Diane Holden. I sat with that for a moment. The affair was something I'd started to understand. This was different. This was calculated, sustained. My own company being bled through my own wife's account, while I loaded pallets in a warehouse 2 floors below the executives who were doing it. There's one more thing, Price said. He opened a third folder. Correspondence between your wife and Garrett going back further than the financial records. They were building something, installing people in key roles across 3 divisions, personnel they controlled. Once your wife was director, she'd have had the authority to push decisions that benefited them. Contract awards, facility consolidations, budget reallocations. With Garrett as CEO and your wife running operations, they could have extracted serious value before anyone noticed the direction of travel. They were trying to hollow it out from the inside. That's how it reads. I thought about Diane's younger brother, Patrick. He'd been working production at Pinnacle's Ohio facility for 2 years. Solid guy, hard-working. Had I missed something there? Find out if Patrick Reeves was involved, I said. He's Diane's brother, Ohio facility. Price nodded. Then he looked at me in a way that wasn't quite a question. There's something I need you to run in parallel, I said. DNA testing, all 4 children, discreetly. Price's expression didn't shift. He'd heard worse. You think some of them might not be yours. Diane and Garrett have been together 3 years. Cole is 12, Maya is 10. The timeline is there. I need to know. Collection kits to your sister's address. Results in 5 days. I drove away from Price's office with the folders on the passenger seat and the kind of calm that only comes when you've moved past the point of being surprised and into the colder place where you just need to know. My phone rang. Rachel. Marcus, you need to come here now. Patrick's at my house. He wants to talk to you. Patrick was waiting in Rachel's living room looking like a man who hadn't slept in a week, which he probably hadn't. He stood up when I walked in. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I didn't know what they were actually building until it was already happening. We sat down and he told me everything. 2 years ago, Diane had approached him, asked him to document production issues at the Ohio facility, employee complaints, workflow inefficiencies, anything that could be framed as a case for restructuring. She told him it was for an internal efficiency review. He believed her. 6 months ago, I found out the truth, he said. Saw them together in Cleveland, confronted her. He looked at the floor. She told me if I said a word, she'd make sure I lost my position. My references would disappear. She knew people. Your own sister threatened you. She's changed, Marcus. Over the last few years, she became someone I don't recognize. She told me she was tired of the act, tired of pretending to be middle class. Said you were holding her back and she deserved more. A silence settled in the room. Did she ever say anything, I said carefully, about Cole and Maya? Patrick went still. Why are you asking that? I need to know, Patrick. Are they mine? He didn't answer for a long moment. When he did, his voice was barely audible. 3 years ago, Diane told me she was pregnant with Maya. Said there had been a complication early on, but that everything was fine. He looked up. I didn't understand what she meant at the time, but after I found out about Garrett, you think it's possible? I think it's more than possible. I'm sorry, Marcus. I should have told you months ago. I was scared. The DNA results came on a Tuesday. I was in Rachel's guest room when the email arrived. I sat with the unopened message on my screen for 5 full minutes. Then I opened it. Lucas Holden, 99.9% probability. Mine. Leah Holden, 99.9% probability. Mine. Cole Holden, 0.0% probability. Not mine. Maya Holden, 0.0% probability. Not mine. I read the numbers twice. Then I just sat there. Rachel found me 20 minutes later. I turned the laptop toward her without saying anything. watched her face as she processed it. "Oh, Marcus," she said quietly. "I'm mi pareja, sorry." I'd raised Cole for 12 years. 12 years of baseball practice and school projects and sick nights and first days and every ordinary moment that adds up to a life. None of it, in the eyes of a lab result, connected to my DNA. "They need to know," I said. "Are you sure? Marcus, this will devastate them. They'll find out eventually. It needs to come from me." I called Lucas. "Can you get everyone together? Mom included. Family meeting. My place." 1 hour. I drove to the house on Westmere Drive for the first time since the night of the party. Diane was in the living room with all 4 kids when I walked in. She looked at me with an expression split between guilt and anger. "Ryan's lawyer said we're not supposed to have." "Diane." My voice was quiet even. "Please stop talking and listen." I looked at my children, Lucas and Leah watching me carefully. Cole on the couch, arms crossed, trying to look 12 and indifferent. Maya beside him, smaller, chewing the end of her sleeve. "I had genetic testing run for all 4 of you," I said. "You needed to know something." Diane stood up. "You had no right to. The results are clear. Lucas and Leah are biologically mine." I paused. "Cole and Maya are not." The silence that followed was the heaviest I've ever stood in. Cole looked at me. "What are you saying? Thomas Garrett is your biological father." "Yours and Maya's." Maya started crying immediately. Cole went completely still, like the information had frozen him where he sat. Lucas and Leah both turned to look at their mother with expressions I won't describe. Leah said, "Mom, how could you do this to them?" Diane was shaking. "You had no right to tell them. They're children, Marcus. They weren't ready. They deserve the truth, because you were never going to give it to them." I turned to Cole and Maya. "Listen to me, both of you. This does not change what you are to me. You understand? 12 years and 10 years. Every single day of that is real. Biology doesn't determine family. Love does. Choice does. I chose to be your father every morning. I got up and made breakfast and drove you to school and sat with you when you were sick. That doesn't evaporate because of a test result." Cole shook his head. His voice broke in the middle. "But you suspected. That's why you did the test. You suspected we weren't yours." "I didn't know, Cole. I swear." "But you thought it." He stood up. "And you were right." He walked out of the room. Maya ran after him, still crying. Leah followed. Asher sat alone on the couch, staring at Diane. "You destroyed this family," he said to her. Quiet, final. Diane turned to me. "This is your fault. You had to dig. You had to ruin everything because your pride was bruised." "Diane," I said, "I know about the offshore account. I know about the embezzlement. I know about the plan to restructure Pinnacle from the inside. I have documentation on all of it." Something changed in her face. "You can't." "I can, and I will in court." I picked up my keys. "My lawyers will be in touch." As I reached the door, Cole was crying somewhere in the back of the house. Lucas was talking quietly, trying to reach him. Diane was still standing in the middle of the living room, the wreckage of 20 years of choices arranged around her. I left. Remember, everything we offer, from fitness to mental health support, recovery to energy, it's all in the description and pinned comment. Take care of yourself the way you'd take care of the people you love. 2 weeks after the family meeting, Lucas called me at 2 in the morning. "Dad, Mercy General, right now." Cole took Mom's car. My heart went cold. He's alive. He hit a guardrail on Route 12. "Dad, please hurry." I was dressed in 90 seconds, at the hospital in 18 minutes, breaking every posted speed limit between Millbrook and Hartford. Lucas, Leah, and Maya were in the emergency waiting room. Diane was there too, sitting separate from the others. "Where is he?" I demanded. "Surgery," Leah said. Her eyes were red. "His leg. 3 fractures. They're worried about his spleen." I sat down. Cole, 12 years old, in surgery because his world had come apart. What was he doing at 2 in the morning? Maya spoke up, her voice very small. He's been sneaking out every night since you told us. He takes mom's keys and just drives around. He said it helps him think. He doesn't have a license. We know. Lucas looked at his hands. We thought he'd stop. We didn't tell anyone because we thought we were protecting him. I looked at Diane. She was staring at the floor. This is what your choices cost, I said, quietly, without anger, just the plain truth. He's 12 years old, and he's in surgery because he doesn't know who he is anymore. Don't you dare, she said, her voice low and shaking. You're the one who told him. You couldn't leave it alone. Stop. Leah stood up. Both of you stop. Cole is in surgery. Can we please just wait? She was right, I exhaled. You're right. I'm sorry. The surgeon came out 3 hours later. Cole was stable. Leg would heal. Spleen intact. He was going to be okay. When they let me in, Cole was awake. Leg suspended, face bruised, one eye swollen half shut. Hey, I said softly. I'm sorry, Dad. His voice was rough, from anesthesia or crying, hard to tell which. I wasn't trying to crash. I just needed to get away from everything. I know. I pulled the chair close to his bed and sat. Cole, what I told you about the test, I know it broke something. I know it changed how you see yourself. But it didn't change how I see you. Not for a second. But I'm not really yours. Biology doesn't make someone your son. Love does. Choice does. I chose to be your father every single day for 12 years. That doesn't end because of a result on a piece of paper. He turned his head toward the window. It feels like my whole life was a lie. Your life wasn't a lie. Your mother's choices were. Those are two very different things. I reached out and held his hand. You are exactly who you've always been. You're my son. Cole started crying. I stayed until he fell asleep. Outside, Diane was waiting in the corridor. Can I see him? Let him rest. He's my son, Marcus. Is he? Or is he the consequence of a decision you made and never told the truth about? I started toward the exit. You've done enough damage. Let him come to you when he's ready. If he decides he wants to. The criminal charges came the following morning. Embezzlement, wire fraud, conspiracy. The district attorney had been interested the moment my lawyers walked the documentation through his door. Thomas Garrett's attorney called 2 days later. My client would like to speak with you privately, Mr. Holden. Why would I give him that courtesy? Because he has information about your wife's legal strategy that you'll want before her attorney's file. We met at a diner in White Plains. Thomas looked wrecked. 20 pounds gone, dark circles, unshaven in a way that wasn't intentional. Thank you for coming, he said. 5 minutes. Diane is going to claim abuse, financial control, emotional manipulation. She's already spoken to 3 colleagues who'll testify you seemed domineering, that she complained about you limiting her autonomy. He looked at the table. She's positioning herself as a victim, and she's very good at being believed. Why are you telling me this? Because the moment I was arrested, she told investigators I coerced her into everything. The embezzlement, the affair, all my doing. She was the victim. She was manipulated. His hands shook slightly around his coffee cup. I thought we were building a life together. She was building an exit. Did you know Cole and Maya were biologically yours? He was quiet for a moment. Then, yes. She told me 3 years ago, said we had to be careful, that if you found out before we had enough control over Pinnacle, everything would fall apart. You were planning to take my children. I was planning to be honest with them about who I was. Diane was the one who insisted on keeping it from everyone. And the money, he shook his head. That was her idea entirely. She called it a safety net, for when we finally left. He slid a flash drive across the table. Account numbers, passwords, full transaction history. She's moved everything she could access into accounts I no longer have visibility on. This is everything I kept copies of. Use it. I picked it up. This doesn't balance the ledger, Thomas. You still stole from me. You still did what you did to my family. I know. He looked up, but maybe it's something. I left him alone with his regrets and his cold coffee. That night, my lawyers had the account information. By morning, every dollar Diane had moved was frozen. She called me screaming. I didn't engage. I gave the phone to my attorney and let them handle it. The trial began 6 months after the night at the Meridian Hotel. Cole's leg had healed by then, a slight limp the orthopedist said would fade completely within the year. He'd asked to testify. Mi pareja Lucas and Leah. Diane's legal team came in aggressive. Colleagues who said I'd seemed cold at company events. A therapist who'd seen Diane twice and rendered a diagnosis. Even Patrick, pressured or guilty, hard to say, offered some testimony about how I managed household finances. Then my team presented the letters. 3 years of correspondence between Diane and Thomas, including detailed planning for the restructuring of Pinnacle Manufacturing and language about removing key personnel who might resist them. The offshore accounts itemized, the transfers time-stamped. But the moment the trial turned was when Cole walked to the witness stand, 12 years old, still with a slight hitch in his step, head level. Diane's legal team went softly at first, asking him about family life, holidays, whether his father had ever seemed cold or controlling. Then my attorney stepped forward. "Cole, did you know Thomas Garrett before your mother's promotion event?" "Yes." His voice was clear. "He came to our house sometimes when Dad was away. Mom said he was a work colleague. Did anything about those visits seem unusual to you?" Cole was quiet for a moment. "When I was 10, I came downstairs for water and I saw them in the kitchen. They were kissing." He paused. "I told Mom what I saw. She said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, and that I should never tell Dad. She said if I told him, it would destroy our family, that it would be my fault." "How did that make you feel? Like I was responsible? Like if I said anything, everything falling apart would be because of me?" His voice faltered. "I carried that for 2 years, until Dad found out anyway." The jury had stopped looking at Diane with sympathy somewhere around the second sentence. Diane was convicted on both counts. 4 years, reduced to 2 with good behavior, full restitution required. Thomas received 3 years. The divorce settlement gave me primary custody of all 4 children. Diane was granted supervised visitation. The stolen funds were ordered repaid in full, with interest. She kept her pension account and her car. I kept everything else. Walking out of the courthouse, reporters pushed forward with questions. I put my arm around Cole and kept moving. "Dad," Cole said once we were inside the car, "are you okay?" "Yeah, buddy, you did great in there. I just told the truth. That's all I ever needed you to do. I'm proud of you." Lucas drove us home. He'd gotten his license 2 months earlier and took every opportunity to remind us. Leah and Maya were waiting at Rachel's with pizza and a cake with blue frosting that said, "It's finally over." "Rachel helped," Maya explained. "I picked the color." Leah was doing better. Twice weekly therapy, slowly separating what had happened to her family from any story she told about herself. Understanding that none of it was her fault, we ate dinner as a family, laughed about things that didn't matter, didn't talk about the trial or Diane or Thomas or what any of it meant. Just 4 kids and their father crowded around a table, passing food, being ordinary. Later, after the kids were in bed, Rachel found me on the back porch. "You held it together," she said. "Barely. Still counts." She sat down beside me. "Now you get to be honest, not just about the company, about who you are. No more hiding." She was right. For the first time in 20 years, I didn't need to be smaller than I was, didn't need to pretend, didn't need to manage the distance between what I had and what I let people see. I could just be Marcus Holden. 14 months after the night at the Meridian Hotel, I stood on the roof terrace of the new Pinnacle Manufacturing headquarters in Columbus, Ohio. New building, new city, clean start. Brett Hamilton was there, now running production operations after 2 years of earning it back from scratch. He'd come to me after the trial, asked for a chance to prove himself. I'd given it. He'd exceeded every benchmark we'd set. "Assembly lines are running at 97% efficiency," he said, showing me his tablet. "Best numbers in company history. Good work, Patrick." I looked at the rows of equipment below us, steady and functional and entirely mine. Your sister gets out next month. He nodded. She asked if the kids would visit. Lucas and Leah said maybe, someday. Cole and Maya said not yet. Patrick nodded again. Neither of us had anything to add to that. Cole had been clear with me about his feelings. He knew Diane was his biological mother. He also knew who had chosen to show up for him every day for 12 years. He was a Holden, he'd told me once, and that was that. Maya had taken longer to find her footing. She'd asked me once whether Thomas Garrett wanted to meet her. I told her the truth. He'd written from prison, asking about both of them, wanting some kind of connection. She'd thought about it for 3 days and then told me she had a father. She didn't need another one. My phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. Dad, Leah just got her Cornell acceptance. She's actually vibrating. I smiled. Leah wanted engineering, following a path her great-grandfather had started 60 years ago in a small factory in western Connecticut. Lucas was looking at business schools, talking vaguely about Pinnacle someday. Cole had tried out for the school baseball team and made it. Maya had found the school choir and discovered, to everyone's considerable surprise, that she could sing. They were healing. We all were. Go celebrate, Patrick said. This will still be here tomorrow. I drove back to Westchester. New house, smaller than the old one. No memories embedded in the walls. Just space we were filling with new ones. All 4 of them met me at the door, talking over each other about Cornell and what it meant and how far away Ithaca was and whether the cafeteria was any good. We're getting Chinese food, Lucas announced. Leah's choice, since she's apparently a genius now. I'm not a genius. I worked hard. Same thing, Cole said, grinning. We crowded around the kitchen table. Cartons of food passed hand to hand. Arguments about which movie to watch. Plans to visit the campus, the specific, irreplaceable chaos of a family being ordinary together. After dinner, Leah found me in my study. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you regret it? That night at the hotel, telling the truth. I thought about it. Not quickly, actually thought about it. The trial, Owen in surgery. The months of sessions and hard conversations and grief that looked different in each of my children's faces. No, I said, because it led here, to all of us being honest with each other, to you knowing who I actually am and deciding that was okay, to building something that's ours instead of maintaining something that was never real. I looked at her. No, I don't regret it. Good, Leah said, because I'm proud of you for being brave enough to tell the truth even when it was expensive. She hugged me and went to bed. I sat in the study for a while. Photos on the desk. 4 kids at various ages. My grandfather at the original Pinnacle facility, 1963, squinting into the sun and looking like a man who had no idea what he was starting. Rachel at her wedding, laughing at something Daniel said. A life, fully lived, with everything that phrase actually contains. My phone lit up one more time. Unknown number. Marcus, this is Elena from the Adult Literacy Program at Bridgeport Community Center. We heard you'd relocated operations to Ohio and wondered if you'd consider volunteering remotely or during visits. We run citizenship test prep, basic reading support, job application coaching. Same kind of work you used to do with us in Hartford. Interested? I typed back, very. When can I start? Because that work, sitting across a table from someone who needed something and having the means to provide it, that was never about the money or the company or what anyone thought of me in a hotel ballroom. That was who Marcus Holden actually was. The secrets were gone. The performance was over. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I was just myself, and that, it turned out, was more than enough.